Today we're looking at finding the greatest common factor of two or more numbers. So we do have some key vocabulary words as we start today. We kind of reviewed factors when we talked about factor pairs yesterday. Those numbers that you can multiply to get to a certain product. So when we have factors that are shared by two or more numbers, we call those common factors. If they're shared, that's common. And then the greatest of the common factors, we call that the greatest common factor. And a lot of times we're going to write, you'll see GCF, just an abbreviation here. So we are going to look at more than one method to do this, like we have with some other concepts. And the first one we're going to do is a list of factors. This is going to be the first method we use. And so list of factors, method one. So we're going to use the numbers 24 and 40. So the first step, I just wrote here, step one, we're going to list the factors of each number. So let's go ahead and do that. Factors of 24. So we know we can do 1 and 24, okay, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. So I'm just going to list those actually in order. Rather than as pairs, I'm going to list them in order from least to greatest here, all separated by commas. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing with 40. I'm going to list out the factors. I can do 1 times 40 and 2 times 20. We have 4 times 10 and then 5 times 8. Okay, that is step one. Step two, we're going to circle the common factors. So I'm going to go through my list. And I can see that they both have a 1, so I'm going to circle those. They both have a 2 in their list. They both have a 4. They both have an 8. So I circled the common factors. So I would say that the common factors of 24 and 40 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. But then the greatest one is 8. So the GCF of 24 and 40 is 8. That's the biggest factor that they share. Okay, the next method we're going to look at is using prime factorization. And so we're going to use the numbers 12 and 56 for this one. This method can really come in handy if you have trouble listing all of your factors. So if you really struggle with your multiplication facts, this is a good method for you because you only have to know one factor pair when you make your factor trees. But also, if your number is larger, you don't want to list out every factor involved, the factor tree is the way to go. So first step is just to make a factor tree for each number. So let's do that for 12. So you can do, remember you can choose any factor pair. I'll just go 3 and 4 for this one. Okay, so factor trees like we did yesterday. And then I'm going to do 56. And I'll go 7 and 8 for this one. 8 can be broken up into 2 and 4. And then I can break that 4 up into 2 and 2. Okay, then we're going to record step 2, which is to write the prime factorization of each number. So when I do that, for 12, I have 2 times 2 times 3. And then we'll do 56. And we ended up with 2 times 2 times 2 times 7. Okay, then we're going to add step 3. We're going to circle the common prime factors now. So just the prime factors that they have in common. So when I do that, I look at my 2 lists here. They each have a 2 down here. And they have a second 2 as well. And then last step is to find the product of the common prime factors. So I'm going to take a 2 and then another 2 that I circled, and I'm going to multiply those. So I get 4. So then that's my final result. The greatest common factor of 12 and 56 is 4. So I created a factor tree for each one, wrote out the prime factorizations, circled the common prime factors, and found the product of those prime factors here. Hey, now we're going to see what this looks like using three numbers, 18, 24, and 42. So when you have three numbers, you're going to want to just list out your factors. So go ahead and list out your factors for 18, 24, 42. So go ahead and pause your video and list those out for me. Okay, so here's my list of factors. I'm going to circle all the ones they have in common. They all have a 1. They all have a 2. They all have a 3. And so when I have three numbers, I'm making sure all three lists have that number. They all have a 6. And that is the only one I see. So looking at this, I can see that the biggest of those is the 6. So 6 would be my GCF of 18, 24, and 42. We're going to look at prime factorization with three numbers as well. Make sure we get the right answer, the same answer. So let's go ahead and turn the page, and we're going to use prime factorization. So once again, you're going to go ahead and create a factor tree for each one of these. So go ahead and do 18, 24, and 42. So you can pause your video and create those factor trees. Okay, so there are my factor trees. So now I'm going to go ahead and list out the prime factorizations and list out the products. So 18, we ended up with 2 times 3 times 3. And then we'll do 24. We had 2 times 2 times 2, and then times 3. And then for 42, we had 2 times 3 times 7. So from here, we want to go through the same process. We want to find the common prime factors. So they each share a 2, and then they also each have a 3. Okay? There's nothing else that they all three have, so we're just going to take the product of 2 and 3, and just like with our first method, we should get 6. So the GCF of 18, 24, and 42 is 6. The last thing you're going to see in your notes is a summary. We're going to leave that portion blank for now. We will come back to this later, and we'll summarize what we did here after we process greatest common factor and practice that on our homework.